You are born in the year of our Lord 782. Not that you'd have any concept of that particular calendar. For you, it is simply another year of dust and wind in the Sogdian homeland, a smudge of land squeezed between greater, greedier empires. Your world is a courtyard in a minor city whose name will be forgotten, a place smelling perpetually of dried fruit and animal dung. Your father is a merchant, which is a polite way of saying he is a gambler who uses camels instead of dice. Your mother is a weaver of whispers and worries, her face a roadmap of every caravan her husband ever joined. You are not born into a family so much as a line of credit, a liability with legs. Your father's profession, his social status, is that of a necessary foreigner, a man who belongs to the road itself, and therefore belongs nowhere at all. His fate, as it happens, is to be consumed by that road. He doesn't return from the east. There is no dramatic news, no heroic last stand. One day, his partners simply arrive back in town, a few camels lighter and with practiced, somber faces. They hand your mother a small, lacquered box containing a few clipped silver coins and a single, exquisite piece of jade, cool and indifferent to the touch. This, they explain, is your inheritance. Not the jade, of course. That is for the man who financed the venture. Your inheritance is the debt. It is a ghost that settles over your house, colder and heavier than any winter snow. Your path is not chosen. It is decreed by that empty space at the dinner table. You are to become a merchant. It is a hereditary curse, passed down like a congenital illness. There is no other option. Your people, the Sogdians, are the connective tissue of this world, the sinew that binds empires together with threads of silk and whispers of commerce. And sinew is meant to be strained. Your most vivid childhood memory is not of playing games, but of sitting silently in the corner of a room while men with hard eyes and soft voices discussed your future as if you were a pack animal to be appraised. You remember the creditor, a man whose smile never reached his eyes, placing a hand on your shoulder. It didn't feel like a comforting gesture. It felt like he was testing your sturdiness, judging if your small frame could one day carry the weight of his investment across a desert. You learned then that you were not a boy. You were collateral. That is your inescapable reality. The road is already waiting to claim you, not as an adventurer, but as another payment on a long overdue account. Your life is not your own. It is a commodity, and the market has already determined your worth. The end of your childhood begins when you are 8. There is no ceremony, just an abrupt transition from the relative freedom of the dusty street to the confines of your family's courtyard, which now serves as a warehouse for your father's creditor. Your training begins here, under the unforgiving tutelage of your uncle, a man whose own dreams were ground into dust by the same road that now calls to you. He is to make you useful. The methodology is one of casual brutality, designed to strip away the softness of youth and replace it with the calloused utility of a tool. Your first lesson is in memory. You are made to memorize the weights and measures of a dozen different cultures, the exchange rates between currencies of silver, gold, and copper, the subtle differences in the quality of silk, from the gossamer thin fabrics of the Far East to the heavier brocades of the Persian court. Failure is not met with patient correction, but with a sharp crack from a wooden rod across the backs of your legs. Pain, you learn, is an excellent mnemonic device. A key moment of failure comes when you misidentify a bolt of slightly water-damaged silk. It's a small error, one that might cost a few coins. Your punishment is to be locked in the camel pen overnight. The suffocating darkness, the hot, foul breath of the beasts, their immense, shifting bodies a constant threat in the blackness. This is your lesson. You are to be one of them, a beast of burden, and you must understand their world, uncomfortable, filthy, and utterly devoid of sentiment. This process is a psychological rewiring. It is the scientific and systematic stripping away of your identity. Empathy is a liability. You are taught to see people not as souls, but as potential customers, partners, or threats. A man's sad story is merely a negotiating tactic. A woman's plea is a distraction from the quality of the goods she is selling. Childhood innocence is burned away by the harsh sun of commerce. You are molded piece by painful piece into a specific instrument. a walking calculator with a capacity for suspicion and a high tolerance for discomfort. They are not raising a son. They are forging a key, a thing designed for a single purpose, to be thrust into the keyhole of the world and turned until the lock gives or the key breaks. Now, let's talk about the grand lie, the gilded myth that will one day cling to your memory like a fine perfume covering the stench of a corpse. The romantic perception is that you are an adventurer, a bringer of culture, a weaver of worlds, a Silk Road merchant, a title of such elegance, such poetic flair. It suggests a life of vibrant marketplaces, of sharing wine with exotic princes, of being a vital, celebrated link in the great chain of civilization. Let's violently juxtapose that with the biological hell that is your actual daily existence. First, the hygiene, or rather, the complete and utter absence of it. The stench is your constant companion. It's a complex bouquet. The sour smell of your own unwashed body. The ammonia reek of camel urine soaking into the ground. The sweet, nauseating odor of slowly rotting food supplies, all topped with the fine, ever-present dust that coats your tongue and cakes in your nostrils. You don't just have lice. You cultivate entire civilizations of them in your hair and clothes, a thriving metropolis of parasites you share generously with every man in your caravan. Your diet is a testament to the endurance of the human stomach. For months on end, your world of flavor is reduced to stale, rock-hard flatbread, dried meat of questionable origin that you chew on until your jaw aches, and a gritty millet porridge. You drink water that is often warm, brackish, and teeming with invisible life that will shortly introduce you to the intimate, agonizing ritual of dysentery. Health is a fantasy. It's a potential death sentence, a gateway for infections that will turn your limb black. Every cough from a fellow traveler isn't a minor annoyance. It's a possible plague. The romance of the road is the constant, grinding, filthy reality of a body at war with its environment, a war it is slowly, inevitably losing. Your peak, your one moment of so-called legend, arrives not in a silken tent, but in the barren, wind-scoured emptiness of the Gobi Desert, around the year 805. The challenge is not a cunning merchant from a rival guild. It is a dozen dusty, desperate men with knives in their belts and hunger in their eyes. Bandits. The stakes are beautifully simple. Everything you have, including the air in your lungs. Your caravan is small, the guards are few, and you are outnumbered. A fight would be a short, messy affair. So you don't fight. You perform. Drawing on the crucible of your childhood, you tap into that deep well of manufactured misery. You approach their leader not with defiance, but with a display of utter, gut-wrenching despair. The strategy is not one of strength, but of contamination. With a voice cracking from practiced grief and genuine terror, you weave a tale of woe. You tell them that half your caravan, including your own brother, was taken by a swift and terrible plague just a week past. You point to the bales of silk, your most valuable commodity, and you describe them as funeral shrouds, riddled with the pestilence, unfit for any living man. The execution is flawless. You weep. You retch. You scratch at your skin as if plagued by invisible sores. You make yourself and your possessions seem so thoroughly wretched, so profoundly unlucky and infectious, that robbing you would be an act of cosmic foolishness. The bandits, who live by a crude calculus of risk and reward, look at your pathetic, sniveling form. They look at the silent, ominous bundles of cloth. They see not a prize, but a curse. They want your wealth, not your diseases. They spit on the ground, mutter a curse upon your bad luck, and ride away in search of healthier, more profitable victims. The immediate aftermath is not a cheer of celebration. It is a long, heavy silence, broken only by the whistling of the wind. Your men look at you with a new kind of respect, a respect reserved for a man who can weaponize his own wretchedness. Your reputation is cemented not as a brave man, but as a cunning survivor, a merchant who understands the most fundamental rule of the trade. Sometimes, the greatest profit lies in looking too poor to be worth robbing. You are a legend of a sort, the legend of the man who sold the specter of death itself. But what is your life between these brief, terrifying moments of ingenuity? It is a soul-crushing grind. Your typical day begins in the cold darkness before dawn. You rise, your bones aching from the hard ground. First, you check the animals. Are they lame? Are they sick? Their health is your wealth. Then, a breakfast of stale bread and gritty water. Then you walk. And walk. The landscape becomes a hypnotic, unchanging blur of sand and rock. The sun beats down. The wind chafes your skin. In the evening, you make camp. You check the animals again. You eat the same meal. You huddle for warmth. You try to sleep, but one ear is always open, listening for the sound of approaching trouble. This is your routine for weeks, for months on end. The adventure is a flat, monotonous circle of misery. And what of the society you supposedly serve? In the sprawling markets of Samarkand or the teeming cities of the Tang dynasty, you are a necessary evil. They crave the glass from Rome, the spices from the south, the magnificent silks you haul across the world. But they hold you, the delivery man, in contempt. You are an outsider, a perpetual foreigner. Your customs are strange. Your accent is thick. Your very presence is a reminder of a world beyond their walls that they both desire and fear. You will experience this contempt directly. An anecdote. In a tea house in Chang'an, you are refused service, forced to drink outside with the beggars, even though the merchant inside is haggling for the very silks you carried for 1,000 miles. You are treated like a dirty stray dog that has wandered into a palace. There are laws, unwritten but brutally effective, that reinforce your station. In many cities, you are forbidden from owning property. You must stay in designated caravanserai, walled compounds that are as much for keeping you in as for keeping thieves out. You are a tool, and tools are kept in a box until they are needed. Your only protection is the fickle goodwill of a local magistrate, a goodwill that must be constantly purchased with gifts, which is to say bribes. You are not a citizen of the world. You are its tolerated bacteria, essential for digestion, but never to be welcomed at the table. There is no upward mobility on this road. There is only the endless, horizontal grind. The end doesn't announce itself with a thunderclap. It arrives insidiously, a quiet rot that begins in a moment of mundane fiscal prudence. The year is 812. You are leading your own caravan now, a modest affair, but yours. The precipice is a seemingly routine decision made in a dusty marketplace somewhere in the Fergana Valley. You need to purchase grain for the animals, enough to last you through the formidable Pamir Mountains. There are two sellers. One offers high quality, dry grain at a premium. The other offers slightly cheaper grain. It looks fine, mostly, though perhaps a little damp. You, a man whose entire life has been a calculation of razor-thin margins, make the fatal error of theft. The sequence of the disaster is slow, agonizing, and entirely predictable. Weeks later, high in the freezing, oxygen-thin passes of the mountains, you notice the smell. A musty, sour scent emanating from the feed bags. The cheaper grain, improperly dried, has begun to mold. First one camel sickens, refusing to eat. Then another. They grow weak, their humps, the very symbol of their resilience, shrinking and sagging. You are still weeks from the next major outpost. You try to ration the good grain you have left, but it's not enough. The fatal error unfolds not as a battle, but as a slow, quiet starvation. The point of no return is the sound, or rather, the lack of it. It's the morning you wake to find your led camel, a beast you'd named Barum, dead in the snow. Its legs are splayed, its great eyes are dull and frozen over. The silence it leaves is deafening. In that moment, you understand with sickening clarity the totality of your failure. You haven't just lost an animal. You have lost your cargo, your capital, your reputation, and your only means of conveyance. You are no longer a merchant. You are just a man, stranded in the frozen teeth of the world with a caravan of dead or dying animals and a pile of worthless, moldy grain. The consequence is absolute. You are ruined. The psychological aftermath is immediate and devastating. The first haunting is the echo of that silence. the memory of Barham's glassy eyes staring into the unforgiving sky. You are forced to abandon your cargo and beg for passage with a rival caravan, suffering the ultimate humiliation of your profession. The whispers follow you like your own shadow. You are that man, the fool who tried to save a pittance and lost a fortune. You become a walking cautionary tale. This shame metastasizes into paranoia. In the flickering firelight of the caravanserai, every shared glance seems to be a judgment. Every conversation in a language you don't fully understand feels like it's about you. The open road, once a symbol of your livelihood, now feels like a vast, empty courtroom where you have already been convicted. To numb the verdict, you discover your anesthetic of choice. Cheap, potent rice wine, sold for pennies in every squalid inn from Kashgar to the Caspian Sea. The goal is no longer to get ahead. It's to get through the night without seeing the ghosts of your dead camels. The wine works for a time. It blurs the edges of your failure and muffles the relentless whispers. But this new addiction begins to methodically dismantle what little you have left. You gamble away the few coins you earn doing odd jobs for the caravan master who took pity on you. You get into a senseless, drunken brawl over a perceived slight, earning you a facial scar and the further contempt of your peers. Your hands, once skilled at judging the quality of silk, now tremble in the morning until they are steadied by the first drink of the day. Your health, already precarious, deteriorates rapidly. The internal erosion is complete. You are a ruin, wandering through the ruins of your own life, a ghost haunting the road that made and then unmade you. Your final act does not play out on the grand stage of the Silk Road. There is no dramatic mountain pass, no tense negotiation, no final, desperate gamble. Your story peters out in the humid, anonymous back alleys of Antioch, a city teeming with 1,000 lives you will never touch. The final setting is a room. Room is a generous term. It's a damp, windowless space above a tavern, the kind of place where men come to be forgotten. The air is thick with the smell of stale wine, unwashed bodies, and the quiet despair of failure. You are no longer a merchant, not even a beggar. You are simply a fixture, a piece of worn-out furniture in a tavern at the end of the world. You have nothing left to trade, not even stories anyone wants to hear. Your final days are spent in a fog, a cycle of doing menial work for another drink, another few hours of blessed numbness before the memories return. The cause of your death is as trivial as your current existence. It is not a bandit's blade or a desert scorpion. It is something far more pathetic, more suited to the man you have become. It's a festering blister on your heel, a wound you got weeks ago while hauling crates off a ship and were too drunk or too weary to properly clean. In the filth of your lodging, it becomes infected. The infection spreads, a quiet, insistent fire climbing up your leg. A fever takes hold. This grand adventure, this life that crossed continents and climbed the roof of the world, is brought to its knees by a patch of angry skin. There is no doctor, of course. Who would waste their time on a foreign drunkard with empty pockets? Your final moments are a blur of shivering fits and fever dreams. In your delirium, you are back in the mountains. The wind is howling, and you are counting your camels. Your death is a quiet, lonely affair. You die alone, on a filthy pallet. Your last breath a small, insignificant puff of air in a room that doesn't care. Your body will be discovered a day or two later, only because of the smell. What happens next? Nothing. Your passing is an unrecorded event. You are buried in a potter's field, a nameless corpse in a land that was never your own. Your deeds, both your cunning triumphs and your pathetic failures, are forgotten before your body is even cold. The great, churning engine of commerce continues without you. The caravans keep moving. The silk still travels from east to west. Your absence is a vacuum of no consequence whatsoever. And then, the final, most exquisite irony begins to unfold. Time, the great laundromat of history, takes the soiled, bloody rags of your reality and bleaches them into a pristine, heroic white. Centuries pass. Scholars, sitting in comfortable, well-lit libraries, piece together fragments of your world. A German geographer, in the 19th century, invents a beautifully evocative name for the trade routes you bled on: Desidentstrays. The Silk Road. It's a masterstroke of branding. Your story, or rather, a grotesque caricature of it, is reborn. The lice, the dysentery, the crushing monotony, the constant, gnawing fear, all of it is edited out. Your desperate bluff to save your skin from bandits is recast as a moment of charming, roguish wit. The filthy caravanserai where you huddled for warmth become vibrant oases of cultural exchange. Your life of back-breaking labor and social ostracism is transformed into a grand tapestry of adventure and romance. In the modern era, you achieve your ultimate apotheosis. You become a character in a video game, a pixelated avatar for suburban teenagers to steer toward fame and fortune, clicking buttons to achieve a success that you never could. They will call you a hero, a pioneer, an adventurer. They will sell your sanitized story, and it will be wildly successful. The ultimate irony is this: your real life was a grueling, miserable, unprofitable enterprise defined by suffering. Your legacy, the story told about you, is a clean, inspiring, and immensely profitable product. They finally found a way to squeeze a real profit out of you, centuries after you died penniless. And that is the final, sobering truth. History is not the story of what happened. It is the story of what sells. But let's linger for a moment on that pathetic end. Let's truly appreciate its texture. It was the logical endpoint of 1,000 miles of neglect. It started as a simple chafe from a poorly fitted sandal you couldn't afford to replace. For days, it was just another annoyance in a life composed entirely of them. Another small pain to be ignored along with the ache in your back and the hunger in your belly. You walked on it, fouling it with the grime of the Antioch docks, soaking it in puddles of stagnant water and animal waste. You felt the throb begin, a dull drumbeat of doom. But what were you to do? To stop working was to stop drinking, and to stop drinking was to face the screaming silence of your own failure. So you pushed on, favoring the other foot, a slight limp that nobody noticed or cared about. The fever built slowly, a creeping warmth that at first felt like a pleasant respite from the damp chill of the nights. You thought, perhaps, it was just the wine. But then came the shivers, the uncontrollable tremors that rattled your teeth and made it impossible to even hold a cup. Your world shrank to the size of your straw pallet. The cacophony of the tavern below, the arguments, the laughter, the music, became a distant, mocking echo of a life you were no longer part of. Your last lucid thoughts were not of silk or jade, not of desert vistas or mountain peaks. They were of accountancy. You were trying to balance a ledger in your head, a frantic, desperate calculation of debts owed and payments missed. You were still, in your final moments, the man the creditor had forged, a piece of living collateral, defaulting on the loan of life. The final irony isn't just that your story was romanticized later. It's that your death was the direct result of the poverty your supposed glamorous profession had ground you into. You didn't just die in squalor, you died of squalor. And what of the legacy you unknowingly carried? The ideas. The religions that hitched a ride in your caravan, nestled between bales of silk and barrels of spice. The Manichaean preachers, the Nestorian Christians, the Buddhist monks, they used the routes you and your kind painstakingly maintained. You were probably annoyed by them, their incessant praying a distraction from listening for bandits. Yet, while you were worrying about profit margins, they were redrawing the spiritual map of the world. You were the unwitting mule for metaphysics. You also carried disease, of course. The plagues that would later be given grand, historic names like the Plague of Justinian or the Black Death, didn't just appear out of thin air. They traveled. They traveled in the fleas on your rats, in the coughs of your companions, in the very goods you so diligently protected. You were a biological weapon, a perfectly designed delivery system for pathogens. You helped connect the world, yes, but you also helped it die. Entire civilizations flickered and dimmed because of the microscopic stowaways in your cargo. When future historians write about the great demographic shifts of the first and second millennia, your anonymous, flea-bitten caravan is the patient zero of their grand theories. They will praise the exchange of goods and ideas, while conveniently glossing over the fact that it was also an exchange of germs and bacteria on a continental scale. Your greatest and most lasting impact on the world was not economic, but epidemiological. And the final, perfect, most pessimistic twist? The myth they built around you, the tale of the daring merchant adventurer, completely obscures this more profound, if horrifying, truth. Your true legacy is one of disease and inadvertent faith spreading. Yet you are remembered for a life you never lived, a heroic pursuit of wealth you never truly found. The story they tell isn't just a lie. It's the wrong lie.